That was Song Without Words, Felix Mendelssohn, Opus 67, number 2. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Frances Lorenz, and it's my delight to welcome you. We are starting a new series on stepping into the unknown, or the winds of change, and that will be the theme for the rest of the month. So we welcome you here as well as at home. And I want to introduce our musicians today. They are Terry O'Hara, Bienvenido, Yangco, who just played the clarinet solo. We have Steve and Kristi Nebel as our musical guests today. On platform with me is Bev Holland. She's our practitioner. And Reverend Matthew Breck will be leading us in a meditation. So at this time, I'm going to call Steve and Kristi to platform as they perform the Tangle of the Years. For those of you who don't know Steve and Kristi, they have been working traveling musicians without a day job. And I always admire musicians that can do that and have traveled all over the country in England, Scotland, and points beyond to perform their music, most of which is written by Steve, I believe. And so here they are, Tangle of the Years.
Divine good sense.
Thank you, Francis.
This song is from a summer that we spent in Cordova, Alaska, and it was we were having a little bit of a stressful time, but there was another duo that was playing up the street from us, and that we made friends with, and our friend Sunrise was pretty much blind, and so it seemed to me like the challenges that he had were inspirational compared to the challenges that I was facing.
Yeah, our little world had crashed down on us about a week before we got there. We wound up without a job and thought the world was ending. Then we pulled ourselves out of it and made friends with another couple of musicians who were playing in the bar right next to us and started to do things with them. We climbed a little mountain with them and shared meals with them and became very close friends with them eventually.
Looking at a photograph of a walk I took with you, I could see your soul inside your smile, heard the laughter we once knew. And if I could reach back across time, those days would still be here. For the love we knew has lasted through the tangle of I remember when I met you, we were broken down. The season had turned nasty in that small Alaskan town. But there was too much camaraderie to keep us down for long. And we'll never see those days again. And oh, those days were long. I know it's just a photograph, but my eyes see the truth of the days we spent together in our sometimes misspent youth. And we may never know the truth of every journey that we start, like the memory, the pen of time is written on my heart. Our struggles still continue, though we live in different towns. But your memory comes back to me when something's broken down. Then I could laugh at my anxiety. I feel a fool for all my fears. For the love we knew has lasted through the tangle of the years. Was it courage that I brought to you? Was it strength you brought to me? I was just a wounded soul, but you could not see. And you hardly ever mentioned it. Well, I hardly ever knew. Still the strength I saw gave me the will to see that season through. The years have not been easy on the roads we traveled down. Sometimes we come to visit you near that scenic little town. When I see your face, I realize there's really not that much to fear. For the love we knew has lasted through the tangle of the years. For the love we knew has lasted through the tangle of the years. Yes, the love we knew has lasted through the tangle of the years.
Thank you both. So our announcements, you've got some inserts in your program. I'd like Matthew to come up and tell you a little bit about visioning. This is the last day you can sign up for it because it starts tomorrow evening. This is a really great class. So you want to come up?
Morning. Visioning. This is an incredibly powerful spiritual tool that I have used a lot, and I'm a very passionate visioner. And what this does is it takes you beyond envisioning. It actually takes you beyond visualizing into a whole nother realm. It's really a meditative realm, and it's just powerful. It provides results in your life, oftentimes immediately or shortly thereafter. And those results continue to unfold, and it really gets you into the realm of expectation of your good flowing to you. And so this class is an opportunity for you to learn that, to put it into practice right away, and to begin making that part of your daily spiritual practices. And I'm just extremely passionate about visioning. It has done wonders in my spiritual journey. So I'm honored to share that with you and invite you to sign up for this class. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew.
Yeah, and I guess I'll be back up here in a moment.
Okay. Bev has an upcoming class that's fabulous, From Whence We Came. So she's going to tell you about that.
Good morning. So, I don't know about you, but when I first walked into CSL and met people and heard Reverend Francis speak, I felt like I had come home. And just finding over the years all the people that I've met that have similar beliefs and also think that they were out there on a cloud somewhere. But we are all together, which is wonderful. And what this class is about, it's discovering more about yourself and how much we can learn from those who have come before. Ernest Holmes, of course, Dr. Holmes wrote The Science of Mind, and we follow that always. There are a lot of teachers that taught him, and there are teachers that taught them, etc., etc. So all the metaphysics are in there, New Thought, which is really ancient wisdom, all of the beliefs that we have, the principles, and where they really came from. So if you have any interest in history or want to find out more about yourself and your beliefs, I invite you to join us. It's a 10-week class. There is reading, but it's all really fascinating. And so it starts on April 20th, a week from this Tuesday following. Hope you can join us. Just go online and csl.org and you can find the class. Thanks.
Okay, we don't want you going to home office. It's time for our opening prayer, and Bev's going to do that for us this morning.
I invite you to close your outer eyes with me and just know the truth. I recognize that Spirit, God, energy is absolutely everywhere. And I know it is very evident today in the beautiful blue sky, the sun, the little leaves that are coming out on the trees, the bird songs. Everything is waking up from the winter. And that makes it more evident. But it is true that that same energy, that same God, that same Spirit is always present. And in fact, it is present within each and every one of us and each and every one on the planet and beyond. We recognize that every sentient being has that same energy ready to just move in them. We need only accept what Spirit wants to give us. The abundance, the love, the creative abilities that we have are always there. And so I'm just grateful for this today and every day. And I just release this treatment into the universal law where I know it is done. It is done and it is so. And so it is.
I'd like to lead us through our meditation this morning. Let's just allow our eyes to close once again and take that beautiful prayer into our heart space. And let's turn our attention towards our breath. And just be quiet with our breath. And let's notice that perfect, fluid rhythm of our breath. Let's notice that we don't need to think about our breath, that it breathes us. It is the illumination of life within us, within our physical being. It is the very same vibration that fills the space around us and that breathes the entire universe. So this morning I invite you to allow your breath to take you to that still point within. That place where divine, where source, where God meets you. And from this place that knows you so well, allow yourself to become an open channel. Allow whatever needs to be spoken to your soul to be spoken. And now I'd like to invite you to move into a place of freedom. Freedom from anything and everything that might hinder your expression, your soul's voice, your growth, your expansion. And just allow all of that to simply fall away. And feel that lightness and that freedom in your spirit and in your mind. And bring it into your heart space. And I'd like to invite you to say yes. Yes to moving forward from this moment on with that freedom in your soul and your mind. With that freedom pouring out from you into the space around you and touching everybody you come in contact with. And let's breathe that in right now, deeply. And allow it to resonate within every fiber of our being. And as we breathe back into the room, let's move forward with confidence and with that beautiful freedom. And as we open our eyes and return to the room, let's take a look around at each other and see that beautiful expression in everybody here. So I'm knowing wellness for you, I'm knowing freedom and joy, and so it is.
Through all the years that Kristi and I have been doing this, there's always been a process of jumping off of a cliff. You know, it really has with our entire lives and going, okay, we're going to do this. Not really having. One thing that Kristi always has said to me is, wow, we've managed to make a living playing music with virtually no early encouragement. So it's always been a matter of us just deciding that we're going to do it. And first there was quitting the day job, and then it was getting a full-time job working playing in music, which meant traveling, and then we one day decided to go to Europe, and deciding that we were going to play folk clubs in England. We've done 9 tours over there. So, and it was always just a matter of, grab your parachute, we're jumping again, right, Kristi? And through all of this, I've always had Kristi with me, and that's been really probably the best thing about the whole thing, is having her there.
Wouldn't have done it without you.
2, 3, 4. We always knew the odds were against us. Knew we probably wouldn't win. Still we packed it all up in the big white van, headed out on the road again. Through all the love we were feeling, there was a love of someplace we'd never been. If we never went back, it didn't matter at all. Still we packed it up and did it again. If I ever said I didn't love you, you know that I was telling a lie. 'Cause I go to the end of the earth with you. I go to the end of the line. And I'm telling you that I love you, like I said it the very first time. It was somewhere on the road to the Yukon. A broken tie rod threw us into the ditch. Our big white van was busted up. We were a late to our gig. We were sure that they'd like what we played them. Mostly we just didn't care. We were paying our bills, we were having our thrills, we were living on mostly thin air. If I ever said I didn't love you, hope you'd know that I was telling a lie. 'Cause I go to the end of the earth with you, I go to the end of the line. And I'm telling you that I love you, like I said it the very first time. They say that nothing we're doing is easy. Doing it was easy with you. I was never too good with a number till I discovered the number 2. So we headed off for old England, flying on a love and a dream. We were playing our songs, they were singing along, and they really loved to hear you sing. If I ever said I didn't love you, hope you know that I was telling a lie. 'Cause I go to the end of the earth with you, I go to the end of the line. And I'm telling you that I love you, like I said it the very first time. Yeah, I'm telling you that I love you, like I said it the very first time.
Thank you. You. Oh, wow. Well, that's perfect for stepping into the unknown. Steve and Kristi have lived their whole lives that way. So it's a new month. The winds of change is the theme, and stepping into the unknown is the message today. And we do a lot of stepping into the unknown throughout our lives, but I think with the pandemic, we've all been thrust into many unknowns, and we would have never anticipated experiencing most of them. The board and the practitioners have quarterly visioning meetings, and yesterday was our second meeting of the Leadership Council. It was very gratifying to do visioning for CSL, a process that was led by Reverend Matthew. And we opened the meeting by sharing about our Easter experiences. Many of us had been able to gather our families together for the first time in over a year, and others realized that Easter was not a strong tradition and prepared their own celebratory meals for themselves. Some didn't have family and spent the holiday alone. A number of us actually orchestrated Easter egg hunts. And then we did this visioning exercise, asking God what was the highest and best for Center for Spiritual Living. And it was a powerful exercise in community. And as we said earlier, if you don't know how to do visioning, I believe you would find it to be a very powerful spiritual practice. And the class starts tomorrow. So it's important to incorporate some of these things into your spiritual practice. I have my own visioning group that meets every week and has for the last, I think, 8 years. So I get so much out of it. So disasters like the pandemic disrupt old ways of being and doing, and they give us a chance to change. And COVID how many of you have really altered some things in your life? Yes? So COVID is kind of unique. It hasn't just been a disaster that's confined to one part of the country, like a wildfire in California or Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. But it's something that has come into everyone's life around the world and brought about alterations in our daily activities. And often our neighbors are the first responders to these crises. For example, just a few days ago, a couple of cars in my neighborhood were broken into, and our neighbor across the street knocked on everyone's door in the neighborhood, advising them to be careful about leaving stuff in the back of their cars that was visible and to be alert for security. So that's altruism, or care for one another, which helps us master the pivots that are required to meet challenges. And as we explore stepping into the unknown and addressing the impediment of the pandemic, it's a chance for greater empowerment. I know so many people who have pivoted into new careers or new knowledge or new training or have written a book during this time. It's been creative for some. So an obstacle is an opportunity to grow bigger in God. And so I invite you to bring some of your challenges to the table this month so we can turn this around. Ernest Holmes said in the book, How to Use Science of Mind, we know that conditions are not things in themselves. We know all conditions are fluidic. They flow in and out, back and forth with thought, and we convert the condition with states of thought and bring a higher inward consciousness to bear on them. No matter how impossible any situation may seem, or how difficult the problem, we hold to the idea that spirit has no problems and there are no impossible solutions. So at this moment, we will know that spirit has no problems and there are no impossible solutions or situations. There are no impossible situations when we bring a higher inward awareness to bear upon them. So, are you ready to do this? Well, let's go. There's a book that's written by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. And according to Holiday, moving from impediment to empowerment is a discipline of 3 steps. And the first step is how we look at our problems, the attitude we have, or the approach. And then it moves to the energy and creativity with which we actively turn them into opportunities. And finally, it includes the maintenance of an inner will that gives us the strength and the fortitude to handle whatever life gives us. To know that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. So these interconnected disciplines could be boiled down to 3 words: perception, action, and will. And we're going to explore each of those words this month. The first one is perception. So this thing is in front of you, this issue, whatever it is, this obstacle, this frustrating, unfortunate, problematic, challenging problem, and it prevents you from doing what you want to do. What if you looked at it or perceived it as something that isn't actually bad? What if you realize that something that is embedded inside of it or inherent in it is actually there to benefit you? How would you show up around it? There's a Zen story about a king whose people had grown soft and entitled. And he was dissatisfied with this state of affairs, so he decided to teach them a lesson. So his plan was very simple. He would place this very large boulder in the middle of the main road, completely blocking entry to the city. And he would then hide nearby and observe what they did. How would they respond? Would they use their creativity to remove it? Would they band together to figure out a plan? Would they stick with it until the boulder was moved? Or would they get discouraged, quit, and return home? So with growing disappointment, the king watched as subject after subject approached the impediment and turned away, or at best gave up after a few minutes. Many openly complained or cursed the king or their misfortune for the obstacle in the road. And after several days, this single man came along on his way to town, and he didn't turn away. Instead, He strained and tried to push the boulder out of the way. And then an idea came to him. He scrambled into the nearby woods to find something he could use for leverage. And finally, he returned with a large branch he crafted into a lever and deployed it to dislodge the massive rock and roll it out of the way. So beneath the rock was a purse of gold coins and a note from the king that said, "The obstacle in the path becomes the path. Never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition." So whenever we face a challenge in our lives, what seems to matter most, really, is not what matters most. What seems to matter the most is not what matters most. It's not the obstacle that matters, but rather our perception of it that makes all the difference. What matters is how we see and understand what occurs around us, and most importantly, what we decide those events mean for us. Holiday writes, "Seen properly, everything that happens, whether it's an economic crash or personal tragedy, is a chance to move forward, even if it's on a bearing that we didn't anticipate. But when it's seen properly," that's the key to the statement. Holiday wrote something that really jumped out at me. He wrote that just because your mind tells you that something is awful or terrible, or an obstruction to your good, or otherwise negative, doesn't mean you have to agree with that. We can perceive it another way. We can see it as an opportunity, as a road to our good, no, to our great fortune. And likewise, just because other people say something is hopeless or crazy or broken to pieces doesn't mean it is. We can see it. We can perceive it another way. We, you and I, get to decide what story to tell ourselves about the situation. And that's the power of perception. We get to choose how to look at a challenge. And the fact is that we may not be able to change the obstacles themselves, and that's where the beautiful Serenity Prayer comes in. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We can't change the obstacles themselves. That part of the equation is set, but we can change the way we perceive them. Holmes writes in Science of Mind, if we believe in suffering, we will suffer. Life responds to us in the way we approach it. We should choose that which we wish to embody, and by constant attention to it, take on all its characteristics. Let's choose to be identified with power, with love, with beauty, with peace and happiness. And let's identify ourselves with abundance and success. So we read words like this and shake our heads. Yeah, that's good. But choosing all that, well, maybe I could identify with those things. And then I ask, can you choose that perception towards whatever challenge that you brought in here this morning? Oh, you mean my challenge? That issue, well, that's a different story. And that's where the discipline comes in. Do we have the discipline to choose our perception of the obstacle, or to listen to all the stuff that goes on in our heads and even our hearts? If we can, that's where the difference is made. Let me give you 2 examples. One comes from the book, The Obstacle is the Way. George Clooney spent his first years in Hollywood getting rejected in auditions, and that's hard to believe. I used to be on the International Sister Cities board, and they said if we could just get George Clooney to promote Sister Cities International. So everybody loved George Clooney, but he couldn't get a job at first. He would go to auditions and he'd want the producers and directors to like him. Haven't you ever done that, Steve and Kristi? You want to be liked. And he actually needed them to like him because he needed the part, but they didn't. And so he was hurt, and he blamed the system for not seeing how good he was. So have you ever felt that way when you've bumped up against an obstacle? Well, after doing it that way unsuccessfully for some time, he decided to perceive his role differently. He thought about the whole process of making movies and TV shows and realized the casting is actually an obstacle for producers too, not just for actors such as himself. They have to find the right person for the role. Just as much as he wanted the role, they're always hoping the next person who walks in is going to be that perfect person. He realized that auditions were chances to solve their problems, not his. Now that's looking at the obstacle in a different way. So he decided to be their solution. He wasn't going to be someone groveling for a shot to play the role. Rather, he would walk in as someone with something special to offer. And he was the answer to their prayers, not the other way around. And this was what turned the tide for him. Not his acting skills, but his projection that he was the man for the job. And that he understood what the casting director and the producers were looking for in a specific role, and that he could deliver it. That made all the difference. And his obstacle became the way. So there's another example of a person, a man who came to Seattle from Chicago, and he was looking for a job as a graphic designer. And he had come from a renowned design firm in Chicago. He had a great portfolio, but every firm he went to in Seattle said the same thing. You do great work, but we don't need a designer. We've got plenty of designers. We need an account rep. And he heard this over and over and over. And finally, the obstacle became the way for him when he went to the final firm and said, "Hi, I'm an account rep." So he got the job, and he got so much business he had to actually work on it as a designer, and his career path was set. So the question this morning around your current issue or challenge or obstacle is this: what can you change, and what can't you? You can change your perception, which is a combination of thoughts, judgments, emotions, approach, attitude, desires, decisions, determination. This is the playing field, so to speak. And everything that's there is fair game. But what can't you change? Well, everything else. The economy, the circumstances, the COVID levels, other people's judgments or decisions or disasters. And there's one more important factor here, and it's also something you cannot change, but this is a good thing, and that is to the extent that you allow yourself to become less resistant to the upsets in life, you can embrace new opportunities. And as you position yourself in the realization that you live in pure spirit, a new power will be born in you. You may not be able to change the fact that there is an infinite power of God's good standing ready for you, willing to be expressed throughout your life, if you'll just open up to it. And in the divine intelligence that is God, way vaster and more expansive than we can ever begin to know or comprehend, this obstacle may be exactly what's needed for our next stage of conscious growth, for our evolution and expansion. That's spiritual truth, and the truth doesn't change. I often think of my experience of being in the Memorial Day flood in Austin, Texas, was that seminal, horrible event that booted me out of one career into the ministry. And I was specifically told to sell everything and go to ministerial school. And so practicing obedience is another factor. I had to sell everything that I'd built in my life in a totally different city and move to Seattle. So it's kind of, is the glass half full or half empty? It's actually maybe somewhere in between. But a negative person will say that glass is half empty. And an enthusiastic consciousness will say that glass is half full. There's an individual that I'm aware of who attracts one disaster after another in her life. And she's particularly leery of her health care providers. She doesn't like male nurses, for example. And of these healthcare providers, she says, I expect incompetency, so when I receive mediocrity, I'm pleasantly surprised. Now, you know that this person never has a good thing happen to her when she goes to see a health provider because of her attitude and consciousness around it. So attitude is everything. So what if we were to change our attitude or adopt the attitude? I anticipate all impending events with enthusiasm and expectation of good. Let's say that together. I anticipate all impending events with enthusiasm and expectation of good. You know, Julian of Norwich lived through a pandemic, which was the Black Plague in the 1400s that reduced the population of Europe by 50%. I think I've talked about her before, but she said, all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. It was her conviction of the goodness of God that kept her together in consciousness. So how do we shift our perception to a place where this spiritual truth can be alive in and through us? Let's do it right now. Before I do that, I want to read you a couple of just short little excerpts. This book was given to me by Jim Valley, the musician. He said, have you ever read The Drowned Book? And I said, no, I've never read that. These are the reflections of Bahauddin, who was the father of Rumi. And I think it's called The Drowned Book because it actually fell in a pool of water, his writings. But I've often said that you have to ask to receive. And so these are two questions to ask of Spirit in your private reflection and meditation. And the first one is called Clear for Me the Me. Clear for me the me. And he writes, I have lost the central thread of my awareness. Limping in this uncertain air, I pray for God to do whatever God does, but which I of me is asking. There are many, some wavering, some solid, and this prayer is, please clear for me the me that wants your presence. I love that. Please clear for me the me that wants your presence. And then in another little piece, he writes, what to begin next? Isn't that a question we all have? I I have so many projects, I don't know which one to begin next. So he says, I can't decide what work, what study to begin next. Among the several possible. And if there is no spirit, no soul, no divine dimension or value, then whatever we do is just killing time. On the other hand, if God and the mystery of spirit overlay with this time and place in simultaneous layering, then anything we work on performs eternity and is the very notion of mystery. Each gesture and word and idea appears in this moment's presence and in the other as well. This is the great truth of being. So right here, I want you to bring whatever issue you want to work on this morning to mind and look at it square in the face and say, let's do this together out loud. There's an energy in this universe. There's an energy in this universe way bigger than I am. The solution is here for me because I am at the center of the mind of God. Right where I am, the wisdom of the universe is. And answers to every question are accessible because right where I am, God is. And I know this obstacle is the way to my good. And so as we have spoken the truth this morning, together we say, and so it is, and so it is. God bless you. Thank you. So we have Steve and Kristi singing Angels of the Road.
Okay. So all of the places we've been at, every once in a while you find yourself out on a highway and whatever vehicle you're in has uncooperated with you. You find yourself needing some help, but there's always somebody who comes along and gives you a ride into town, and you always find somebody who can repair the problem, and then you're back on the road again.
Yeah, I remember we're out in the middle of the Alaskan highway and broke down. So Steve got a ride into town, and I stayed behind, and I found that I had to lie down in the back seat of the van because if I sat up, virtually everybody who drove by would stop to help.
Call all those helpers the angels of the road.
We are just two orphans riding at each other's side. We hold each other's hearts in hand as through this life we ride. We've been to the Northland, to the land of the ice and snow. We've been to the Southland, to the land of the orange groves. We have seen a tyrant with a sword held in his hand. We they'll come to your minstrel soul. They'll hear the song inside your mind. It will make their cuts seem full. You know they'll come to shelter from the storm. By the fire, give you bread and wine, and a place where you can warm. It's only faith, something that you know. When the world is giving up on you, there's a place where you can go. They're the angels, angels of the road. This world may be treacherous, this may only be a dream. As the world changes faces, is not the way it seems. The dance goes ever faster, and the drummer slows his beat. Though you try, you cannot follow him through the fire and the heat. You stumble and you catch yourself. It was a pebble in the road, but your back has started swinging. You unbalanced half your load. You catch your balance once again, then you catch the drummer's beat. But the days have made you weary, every path leads to defeat. The darkness falls, the cold wind blows. You cannot find a shelter any way that you could go. You hold the crystal in your hand, feel the crystals glow as it makes connections in your thoughts to the angels of the road. You know they'll come to your minstrel soul. They'll hear the song inside your mind. It will make their cups seem full. You know they'll come to shelter from the storm. By the fire, give you bread and wine, and a place where you can warm. It's only faith, something that you know. When the world is giving up on you, there's a place where you can go. They're the angels, angels of the road, angels of the road. They're the angels, angels of the road.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. So it's time for our offertory, and I would be willing to collect it. So we like to say the blessing that is on the screen together. So together we say, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And so it is. And so Benny's going to play softly and tenderly for our offertory. So to give us our closing healing prayer, Bev Holland, followed by Everybody Needs a Little Love.
I invite you to close your outer eyes again with me and just recognize that spirit that is absolutely everywhere is certainly present within the music today, the gorgeous tones from the clarinet and the guitars and the piano. We recognize, we feel that viscerally and know that that is spirit moving in, as, and through us. Recognizing that spirit, we also recognize when we have stepped into the unknown. When we certainly recognized it a year ago when we did that in the beginning of the pandemic. And I recognize right here and right now that how we live, not only times like that, but all days, depends on how we view it, how we interpret it, whether it is something that will help or hinder. And I know that things do just happen. I know that we can have conditions in our life that have seemingly just happened. And it really depends on us of how we perceive that. So I just know today, for all of us, that whatever our healing need, it is being taken care of. We accept it. We accept the truth, which is the embodiment of spirit within us. The embodiment of health and wholeness. The embodiment of abundance in our life, in every part of our life. Abundance of health, abundance of coin, abundance of the ability to make and keep friends. There are so many parts that are where we are abundantly blessed. And so I'm just grateful for all these truths. And I say thank you, God. And I release this treatment, knowing that it always is true. And I say thank you, and so it is.
I'm ready.
Everybody needs a little comfort now and then. Everybody needs a little love. Everybody needs to feel alright with things. It doesn't always happen, doesn't always go easy. Sometimes it goes sideways down a long dirt road. Still everybody needs a little help now and then. Everybody needs a little love. You can feel alright, got a pretty good hand. You don't know what the dealer's gonna throw. One day you're feeling pretty and the money's coming in. You think you've got the cards, but you don't know. Everybody needs a little comfort now and then. Everybody needs a little love. Everybody needs to feel alright with things. It doesn't always happen, doesn't always go easy. Sometimes it goes sideways down a long dirt road. Still everybody needs a little help now and then. Everybody needs a little love. You can see other people, those people see you. You don't know what those other people know. They don't know you from Adam, you don't know them. You'll get to know them if you take it slow. Everybody needs a little comfort now and then. Everybody needs a little love. Everybody needs to feel alright with things. It doesn't always happen, doesn't always go easy. Sometimes it goes sideways down a long dirt road. Still everybody needs a little help now and then. Everybody needs a little love. It's a very nice spring, the planting's going well. You're hoping everything you planted grows. There could be a tornado or the river might flood, so you plant and do the things that you can't know. Everybody needs a little comfort now and then. Everybody needs a little love. Everybody needs to feel alright with things. It doesn't always happen, doesn't always go easy. Sometimes it goes sideways down a long dirt road. Still everybody needs a little help now and then. Everybody needs a little love. Everybody needs a little comfort now and then. Everybody needs a little love. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, Kristi, and thank you all for being here this morning. We'll see you next week. And those of you who joined us on live stream, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. God bless you.